Well, good afternoon. How are you, Pastor David?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Absolutely.
So, I want to give you a moment to introduce yourself. But first of all, I want to just take a minute to honor you. We met, I think it was in 2008.
Wow.
So we were doing ILA, which was the I Love America event in
4th of July.
4th of July. Yes. And you were working with an organization doing water wells in East Africa.
Yep.
And I had just come back from Africa, and so we started a conversation.
Yep.
And then to see you come on staff here, you are executive staff, and now I'm honored to be able to call you pastor. And so to be able to work with you, work under you, to serve you is a blast for me. It's a blessing to get to hear you preach, to get to see you love on your family, and to get to see you just minister here has been a blessing to Lori and I and our whole family and the entire college. So thank you for being here with us today. I would love it if you would just introduce yourself to everyone. Tell us about your wife and your amazing kids and just what you do.
Sure. Well, my name's David. Nice to meet you. And I'm married to Becky, and we've been married for 14 and a half years, and we have 4 amazing children. And so Owen is 11, and Elliot's 9, and Henley is 7, and Calvin is 4. And then we have a dog named Denali, and she's this Siberian Husky, and she's awesome. But Becky and I met at church, and I was a camp counselor. She was an assistant camp director for kids camp back in the day. And we locked eyes, or maybe I just saw her. I'm not sure, but the Lord graciously brought us together, gracious to me, and then we moved to Dallas. Shortly after that, we were married here, moved to Dallas here, as in Springfield, Missouri, and then moved to Dallas so I could pursue graduate studies at Dallas Theological Seminary and got my THM there. And then we worked with a couple different churches down there, and as you said, worked for an organization that drills water wells and still does incredible work on the continent of Africa and elsewhere around the world, but World Serve International. So I had the privilege of working with them, and then came on staff in 2010. And so 11 years.
Wow.
It's awesome. Almost 10 and a half years we've been on the team. So it's been great.
That's fantastic. Pastor David, one of the things I really appreciate about you and respect about you is the way that you do life in general. With your wife, with your kids, we get to watch you, and Becky, we get to watch you with your kids. And we love the fact that it's not haphazard. It's not just take it as it goes, but truly the biblical principles that we see through Scripture, you apply them to your everyday life. And there's a theology behind the way that you do life. And so I'd love to just give you a moment to kind of talk with us about how theology plays a role in the foundation of how you do life in general.
Yeah. Well, and I would just say I appreciate the opportunity to even be having this conversation, and for your invitation, and what an amazing job you and Lori are doing with leading James River College, and the impact. I see it in the student body. I see it in the ethos of college life here at James River. And so amazing job.
Thank you, Pastor
But
David.
just on that, I think all of us have to recognize, that individually we are theologians. And so people, I don't know, you may not think of yourself that way, but you're a theologian because theology is the study of God, and it's articulating ideas about God. And if you're a Christian, you're probably doing that. You are doing that. Your life is an articulation of what you believe about God. Yeah. And so we might think in terms of, well, a theologian is somebody who's at a seminary, or they teach, or even a pastor. But the truth of the matter is, every one of us is a theologian. And so the question is not, am I a theologian, but am I a good theologian or a bad theologian? Do I have good theology or bad theology? And those are both certain possibilities. Yeah. And so for Becky and I, not to make this sound like some, wow, we have family devotions at 4:15 a.m. and, we take our kids through the Westminster Catechism every day. We're trying to weave truths about God into the way that we just live life. And, part of that is by being connected to a life-giving local church, and then them experiencing theology through church life.
Yeah.
and being able to ask us, being an open book and asking questions, reading things to them that are overtly theological on their level, but also then things that might be subtly theological or have theological truths woven into them, like Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Be a great, they love that series. They love a lot of other things that are not even subtly theological. And so you're out there. Maybe you're just beginning to walk with God, or maybe you're in high school and like you're trying to think about ministry or your future. You want to surround yourself with people who are going to speak into that and help you walk with God, not just teach you theology, but honestly put it in the context of walking with God and a vibrant spirituality that's not just a bunch of facts or assertions about God. So,
well, I think it's great because what you talked about before about how everyone is a theologian.
Yeah.
And we believe that the first real view of God that our children ever get is us.
Yeah.
And realize we're not perfect examples of that, but what you have done to, insulate yourself with the Word of God and bolster your character and bolster those things in you with the Word of God, to have that to show your kids, so that at 7, he's not sitting there reading Augustine with you, but he is looking at the reflection of God in you, which I think is such a great thing. And when you're talking about being at a place where you can be surrounded by people who live that way, saying, hey, I realize follow me as I follow Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be super intentional about putting yourself in those places.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's A.W. Tozer who says in his book, Knowledge of the Holy, that the most important thing about any one of us is what comes into our mind when we think about God.
Yeah.
And that's true at 36, that's true at 85, and that's true at 11.
Yeah.
And so the most important thing about Owen, our oldest son, is what comes into his mind when he thinks about God. Right now, I'm the one who stewards
that's so good.
That and shapes primarily what comes into his mind when he thinks about God. Honestly, your faith, you have to own your faith at a certain point. So there are some of you, and you're walking through life, and quite honestly, because of the home you grew up in, great Christian home, you've never really had to own it out on your own, and you're coming up on that, and that's really important. That's a milestone in a person's life when they go, okay, I'm living this not because it was the faith of my grandparents or my parents, but I'm living this because it's mine. I believe, and therefore this is the way I live. And here's the thing. Right now, you don't think about it probably, or you think about it intermittently, but you're cutting pathways, you're cutting channels.
That's good.
That are going to be very hard to deviate from in the next decade or 2 decades. And the longer you walk in that channel, the deeper it gets.
Yeah.
And so you want to cut channels for yourself in life. It's true with things like budgeting, spending within your means. Hey, if you're constantly doing that and hoping that your parents will float you a loan or get you out of the hole financially, that there are consequences to that.
Yeah.
So, and you developing a vibrant, loving, living relationship with God, that's cutting a channel.
Yes. Yeah.
Some of you are doing that right now. And honestly, you're going to get the benefit of that for the rest of your life. And it's not just you, it's the people it's the person you marry and the kids that you have and the friends that you have.
Yep.
So, and some of them are already getting that benefit, which is great. Good for you. That's awesome. But I think that intentionality is huge.
It is, and it's the choices we make, and as we look at the choices we make, because it's during this season, middle high school, end of high school, into college, that you really start to feel the push of where God is calling you, how He has gifted you. And so as you begin to make decisions for that, especially for those specifically in this situation who may be feeling a pull or a call towards ministry, and it's like, man, I can rely on my talents, I can rely on my abilities, or I could press deep into a theological understanding of who God is. And I know you're very passionate about theological instruction as it relates to ministry. Talk a little bit about that, because I know a lot of people think, well, if I go to the right spot and I have the right talents or right abilities, I can jump up and minister. But it's so much more than that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I never want to be teaching or leading at the level of my education or the level of my ability. I don't want people when they're listening to me preach go, well, I can tell he is telling me everything he knows about that. And maybe you've been in a room like that where you heard somebody and you realize they were at the high water mark and they have nothing else to, there's nothing else beyond what and here's the thing. Hey, praise God that they were willing to step out in that moment.
Yeah.
But part of the way that even put it in the context of preaching a sermon or teaching a passage, I'm going to read around that passage and I'm going to know things about the passage that it's kind of like an iceberg. My hope is not that I'm an ice cube in a glass of water and like you see the whole ice cube there. My hope is that I'm like that when it comes to teaching a passage, this is not a compliment to me. This is an aspiration.
Yeah.
Is that it would be like the people in the room are getting the visible part of the iceberg in the message, but all of that's built on a foundation that's below the surface, and it's all the things that I've read. It's the time that I spent studying in it's university education, it's graduate school and seminary. All of that gives me a weight. There's a weight. So the iceberg, the reason that you see the part floating above the water is because of all the stuff that's under the water.
Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes we only care about the stuff that floats on top.
Yeah.
Just to be honest, some of you are, and I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just saying some of you are so concerned about the way that people perceive you, and perceive you as knowledgeable, or perceive you as wise, or perceive you as educated, and therefore it honestly hurts your ability to minister with depth and effectiveness. So I think you want to be the kind of person who is invested. Because investment pays a dividend.
Yes.
So you want to be the kind of person that's invested in your theological education, not so that you can have a theological education. You don't want to go to seminary so you can say, I went to seminary. You don't want to get a graduate degree so you can say, I have this diploma, and it means I went to this school and I've got this degree. Wow, good for you. Pin a rose on your nose. What we're talking about here is a foundation out of which becomes a launching pad so that you're not the guy or the girl who has the one thing you can talk about with authority, that you have a breadth of knowledge which gives you your voice, a breadth of application and opportunity to speak to a variety of things, not at the tippity top of your ability, but at a place where you could say, well, I could say a lot more about this, but here's what I know I'm supposed to say in this setting. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that iceberg metaphor really speaks pointedly to where people need to think in terms of, okay, I'm building a foundation.
Yes.
The weight of my life will be under the surface, not all out on the counter or on top.
Yeah, no, I think that absolutely answers the question, because as we're being intentional on how we form the person that we are, and as we press into our relationship with Jesus Christ, obviously we want to reflect Christ, reproduce his image in others, rather than reflecting and reproducing our own image. None of us wants, I don't want a bunch of Josh Hackworths coming out of James River College. I want a lot of those who just reflect Jesus Christ and do that. But there's a wealth of knowledge and experience and maturity that comes from time, spending time in the Word of God, spending time in ministry as well.
So true.
Because often someone wants to get a diploma, like you said, man, you get the degree, and you move on, okay, I'm ready to go. But there's so many things that we learn and develop when we get the hands-on opportunities that really help create those bases and foundations. You mentioned surrounding yourself with people. Talk about, and obviously this is shameless plug. Talk about how that, the theological underpinnings, the backgrounds, the experience, the hands-on helps the students that you get to interact with at James River College, and what you are seeing in them as they grow and develop.
Well, I think for those who are willing to see this season as an investment in their future, then you watch that investment pay off and you watch their passion bloom. So I think for those who treat it as a pass-through, hey, this is just, I'm punching my card. Well, it's not a surprise to me. Then there may be some needed recalibration down the road. Or to me, that honestly is a lack of maturity, because it's a lack of understanding of, well, if God has called you, if you're called to be a pediatrician or a plumber if you're called to be a manager somewhere or go into ministry, wherever God has called you, because God is the one who has called you, it deserves, and the people you're serving deserve your best.
Yes.
So if God didn't call you, then, you're only accountable to you. But the truth is, as a Christian going into any vocation, every vocation for the Christian should be a calling.
Yeah.
Because God is the one who's leading your life.
So important.
So
yes.
if you see yourself, if you see what you're doing from any less vantage point than from the vantage point of calling, what you'll do is you'll shortchange, or you'll treat as less than the preparation to do what you're called to do. And you may say, I don't know what I'm called to do. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. That doesn't change the need. In fact, I think that heightens the need to pay very close attention to the season, because it's still a mystery.
Yeah,
where God is leading you, and so you gotta go. Okay, well, I can't be a specialist then. I got to be a generalist. I can't just treat this class. What can happen is you have your favorite class, and you have your favorite. Oh, I love all my theology classes, but I hate math. God probably has wired you in a certain way, but pastors need math too. That's like a thing. Math kind of in life, you just need it. So you can't just skip out on the things. You got to say, okay, I don't know where God is leading me, so I'm going to be intentional, and I'm gonna not. That doesn't mean I can just sleep through life until I feel like, ooh, God has awakened a passion for something. You got to go, okay, wherever I'm at, I'm intentionally there. I'm there on purpose for a purpose.
Yes, that's so good.
And God is so. What I would say, how have I seen in the lives of students? For students who take it seriously, who say, I'm gonna take the season. And I would say, I was a student. Don't be like me. That in my freshman year, I did not take seriously the education I was receiving, and I wasn't a James River College student. It didn't exist at that point. But I would say there are too many freshmen. You come out of high school, and you're using it as a holiday from your parental authority, and I get there's a learning curve there, but I would say don't waste it.
That's so
don't
good.
waste it.
Yeah, it's so good.
You can't go back and redo it.
No.
So you get one freshman year, you get one sophomore year. You invest it or you don't.
Yeah.
And so for me, I actually had somebody approach me and said, I think it was the end of my freshman year, hey, are you thinking that you'll go to seminary after? And I was like, no way. Like, I grew up in the church. I know a lot about the Bible. Like, as soon as I get the piece of paper that says I know about the Bible, I'm done. I had no aspirations to do that. And honestly, I didn't love reading. I didn't love my coursework. And somewhere along the line, maybe it was the prayers of my parents, who knows, a switch flipped in my sophomore year, and I got it.
Yeah.
And that's right. Shortly after that, I took summer Hebrew and just some more intense classes. And instead of bogging me down, it was like they just fanned into flame the fire that had been lit inside of me. And so I would say that there are, the instructors you have matters. The people you surround yourself with matters. I was playing a lot of video games that freshman year, and I don't think that was helping me. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But I got some different people around me. And some of the same people. Yeah. So I had good, solid people around me, but some of the people who came into my life in that next year really were helpful. I had a professor who actually said, let's get lunch every week. And that was a game changer in my life, honestly, because he invested. I know that at James River College, you don't just have faculty who are doing this because it's a job, it's a calling, it's a passion.
Yeah.
They want to see the students. I had lunch with one of the faculty members this last week, and just him pouring out his heart about the investment he was making in the students at James River College.
Yeah.
To him, he could be doing 1,000 other things.
Absolutely.
But he's doing this in this season of his life because he believes his greatest investment is here in the lives of James River College students. And that's not me just saying, go to James River College. You go wherever God tells you to go.
Right.
But go somewhere where the faculty is committed to relationship and investment with you. It'll make all the difference.
Absolutely. It's incredible you're talking about your story. It was midway through my sophomore year, in college, when I had someone, it was an older student who was getting ready to graduate.
Yeah.
Really pulled me aside and said, you have potential, but you're wasting it. You're
Yeah.
really just
That's
wasting
a fun
it.
conversation.
Yeah, and it was one of those where you want to feel like, what are you talking about, man? But he was a whole lot bigger than me, and I was like, yes, sir, I am. And I wish that I had a place that you were talking about. Like I went to Bible college. I learned a lot, but to have people invest in me, it was a major difference. And that's part of what I really love about the faculty at James River College, and what the intention is. We do freshman, sophomore year specifically.
Yeah.
Because we want to grab them at that age right away, so that it's not like, hey, let's waste our first 2 years. No, let's invest our first 2 years in the best way that we can to set a trajectory for education, for ministry, for life, for family. And that, like our professors and those who are there, I mean, you've seen it.
Yeah.
They're getting to watch you and Becky together.
Yeah.
With your kids. They're getting to watch our professors, who are also some of the staff here on at James River Church, and some of the professors as well, invite them into their lives to see that. Like, that's huge. I didn't have that at 18 years old. And so when I look at the students, when they get to be, halfway through their freshman year and into their sophomore year, they're so in love with the Lord.
Yeah.
And they're so intentional about what they're doing, intentional about their education. I'm like, Lord, I wish when I was 18, 19 years old, I was like that, because it's setting them up for just incredible success in the future.
Yeah, well, I believe that for sure.
What's exciting and fun in your life right now that you're just like, this is just cool season for my wife and I, for the family, for the church, for whatever it is that you just get pumped about?
Yeah, I think a number of things. On the family side, it's just watching my kids discover their passions. And Becky and I, honestly, I just love my wife. So, we are as in love. We are more in love.
That's good.
We are more
That's
in
so
love
good.
than ever before. Coming up on 15 years of marriage. So, I just, so there's just a lot of blessing and grace in this season in our family. But then on the church side, we've got a number of things just in the life of the church. We're talking about what we're going to do for missions this year, and how exciting that's going to be. And then, the men's conference, we didn't have it last year, and it's back. And so to be online and for it to really be global in a way that it's never been before is huge. And so, shameless plug, if you haven't registered for SMC, Stronger Men's Conference, you need to register. You'll be so glad you did. And if you're watching, if you're a pastor from a church around the country or around the world, we're doing for the first time allowing churches to do almost like a site license where they can host a Stronger Men's Conference that feed at their church location. So that'll be fun.
That will be.
So if you know somebody who wants to get in on that, you let them know to reach out, and we're working with pastors individually to help them tailor the event to their church and the men at their church. So in this strange COVID reality that hopefully is coming to a conclusion at some point in the near future. But then my dad, I've been able to help with the book production for my dad, both with Soul Set Free, just on the back end, working with him closely as he's, getting these books written, and just excited about what God's going to do through them. So Soul Set Free came out a couple years ago, and New Normal, which is his new book, is coming out in April 20th. It's available for pre-order now, but I know I see his passion, for the content. I know that people are going to be really encouraged by it. Not just that, though. I think encouraged is kind of a generic term. I think God is going to move you forward. Yeah. That's his heart. Hey, encouraged is great, but life different is better. In more in line with what God's heart is for you. So those are some things that I just would say are exciting. But always love. I'm doing a book study group with a group of guys from the college.
Yes.
And just watching it come alive to them and the discussions, it's very fun. And so just that one-on-one interaction with the students, growing together, learning together, and getting better together. And so I hope you have people around you who are helping you get better. Because when you get better, honestly, the people around you get better, and you get clarity on where God is taking you and leading you. So that's huge.
That's so good. Pastor David, thank you so much for taking time with us.
Absolutely.
I believe that this next season that you're getting ready to step into is going to be the greatest you've ever experienced.
Amen.
I mean, when we say the best is yet to come, it's not just something we say to make people feel good. We believe it. Like, I believe this next season for ministry, this next season for marriage, for parenting. I mean, I just believe you're going to see the grace of God and favor in a unique way. And we are thrilled to cheer you on and to lift your arms in any way we can. So thank you so much for joining with us. We hope that you will drop a comment, like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't done that.
Do it.
Ring
Subscribe.
the bell so that you can get notifications to get all the stuff with James River College YouTube. We love you. We're thankful, and we're believing that God has great things for you as well. We'll see you later. Thanks, Pastor David.
Hey, thank you, Josh.